Strap on your seatbelt and prepare for takeoff. You're about to go on a journey. It's First Contact Radio with Joshua Poet.
That's right, Dirk. This is First Contact Radio, firstcontactradio.com. My name is Josh Poet. Today, we're dealing with lots of issues in the world. A lot of hatred, man. The hatred's going on each and every day. It's just incredible. Just when you think it's not going to ramp up anymore, boom, there's a little bit more. First thing I've got up for you is a link that I didn't have yesterday. I told you about Joe Biden and how they're talking about his gaffe that he made, the gaffe of what he said. You know, he may have said something really stupid, and they're all making a big deal of it, but they skipped the very important gaffe. And that's the part when he told the young college girl who asked him how many genders there are. He said 3. And when she asked him what they were, he'd said to her, "Don't mess with me, kid." And then he forcefully grabbed her arm. This is not something that a Democratic candidate or even a Republican candidate for president or any candidate for president should be doing. You don't reach out and forcefully grab somebody in that way, but therein lies the problem. That is how they behave. We're also seeing other behavior out there from people on the left. The latest one is Chris Cuomo. He's decided he's going to play the role of the tough guy. Now, what gave him his courage? Well, it's the fact that he was out and he had a bodyguard that was going to jump in. So he was able to curse at the young man, say things to him, threaten to throw him down the stairs. And the moment this guy decided that he was going to maybe he took off his glasses, like, okay, if you're really going to make these threats, what are we going to do about it? That's when the bodyguard steps in. Because, see, Chris Cuomo, like all the others, are just cowards. What started that whole thing? Well, the guy called Chris Cuomo Fredo. And somehow Fredo then decided that he was going to associate that with the N-word. Oh, the N-word. So therein lied the problem. Chris Cuomo wants to now dilute the meaning of these various words and phrases by adding them to other words and phrases. He's just basically a talking head that the name Fredo fits him perfectly. Fredo is the dumb brother, okay? Chris Cuomo is obviously the dumb brother, and he's really brave when he has those bodyguards around. I wonder how he would behave if he didn't have the bodyguard. Probably wouldn't say anything. He probably would be sitting there with his pink hat on, being really, really quiet because he's not so brave if he doesn't have another person to stand up and fight for him. So there you go. Chris Cuomo, the Fredo that he created himself to be. All right, let's take a look at some Jeffrey Epstein news. This is from the New York Post. Jeffrey Epstein could have paid for help with suicide, former Gotti pal says. The jail where Jeffrey Epstein apparently hanged himself was a nest of corruption in the early 90s, according to one of the late mobster John Gotti Sr.'s top associates, who insists it's still a place where almost anything can be bought if you have the bucks. If he killed himself, someone had to have helped him, says Louis Kasman, a one-time close confidant of the Dapper Don, who visited The Godfather several times at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in 1982. There were cameras going on 24/7, and they're watching 24/7. Someone had to give Epstein the equipment to kill himself, and he had to pay for it dearly, said Kasman, who had kept abreast of conditions in the lockup. Kasman added that the facility for years had issues of corruption, with correction officers bringing in food or cell phones for wealthy people. The former Gambino bean counter noted that Gotti, who did time both in jail 9 South and 10 South units, its most secure wing, still managed to get his favorite steak dinner sneaked in. He had Peter Luger's whenever he wanted it. Kasman said he heard U.S. Attorney General William Barr personally made a hush-hush trip to the MCC 2 weeks ago about the time Epstein was found in a cell with bruises around his neck. When does that happen, he asked. The Attorney General never visits jail. Something's not right there. Kasman said the facility was totally disgusting, worse than Guantanamo Bay. Roaches crawling all over you in every orifice when you sleep. The Bureau of Prisons' answer to that is that they can't spray. It's toxic. Reps for the jail did not immediately respond to requests or comments. Okay, so up in the beginning of this, it says he apparently hanged himself. Apparently. See, they don't know. It's not known what he did. Some people say he hanged himself. Others say he committed suicide. Others say the Clintons were involved. Speaking of which, Terrence Williams, he put out a tweet that included the phrase Clinton body count, and then President Trump retweeted that out, and now, because of the tolerance of the left, he is getting death threats. Believe it or not, death threats. Okay? If you go to Twitter, he lists himself as a comedian, Terrence K. Williams. However, he is getting death threats from the liberals, the left, who claim that they are the peaceful, tolerant ones. They're not the peaceful, tolerant ones. They are the true fascists. They just cannot see it. The fascists were the ones who censored people. They were the ones who beat people up if you didn't follow what they wanted. They were the true criminals, the thugs of society. And that's exactly who those are on the left. From Antifa down to all of the other organizations associated with it. How could they not be? You have George Soros backing all of these. Well, we know what kind of person he is. He's a thug. He's a thug who's created situations throughout the world where chaos can reign. Okay, that's not something that is done by a good person. That is done by somebody who's not a good person. So here we go. Here's another story here. True News. Here's what True News discovered at Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Zero Ranch. This is where the former financier was allegedly running a breeder farm to seed the human population. Just hours after the death of disgraced former financier Epstein, True News correspondent Edward Snall and True News producer Matt Scow visited his alleged breeder facility at his ZORRO ranch near Stanley, New Mexico. They left for the 8,000-acre ranch Friday without knowing what would happen early Saturday morning. But after learning of Epstein's reported death, they approached the property with a new mission to see if they could find someone working there who could respond to the news. Instead, they found the estate mostly empty. Although there were signs someone was there, this included several vehicles as well as a relatively recent arrival, a large recreational vehicle with its rooms extended, implying it was in use. Snall and Scow didn't spend too long on the property, but while they were there, they observed a few oddities, including a cast iron coat of arms that date to 1610 emblazoned on what appears to be symbols reminiscent of the European Habsburg dynasty, a pair of African fertility statues sitting in an alcove on the main building's roof, but behind iron bars, and large curtains over the many windows, as well as iron bars over some of the bars, preventing anyone outside from seeing in or anyone inside from getting out. Upon closer examination of the vehicles parked on the property, Snall said he observed two bicycles attached to the back of the SUV. One of those vehicles appeared to be meant for a young girl. Although they did not see anyone, they left when dogs began barking. And there's a video here you can click on. So, obviously, more strange, suspicious activities going on, which is why this is such a high profile case, and of course, why there are those who want to make sure that this man is not out there talking. Now, the other day I told you about a post that appeared online on the message board or the image board 4chan that alleged, according to the poster, that Jeffrey Epstein was moved. He was moved out of that facility during the night. Says FDNY reviewing 4chan post and Jeffrey Epstein's death made before knowledge was public. The New York Fire Department has launched an investigation into whether the alleged suicide of wealthy sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was leaked by a first responder on 4chan before officials announced his death. The alleged leak was posted on the poll subforum warning potentially offensive content at 8:16 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday the 10th, which was about 40 minutes before his death, was widely reported according to BuzzFeed. Don't ask me how I know, but Epstein died an hour from hanging, cardiac arrest. Screen test this, the post said. FDNY Deputy Commissioner Frank Gibran said he could not verify the accuracy of the 4chan post. The report noted The department also reviewed the incident. Another FDNY spokesman said officials determined this alleged information did not come from the fire department. Okay, so one, is it normally my question, is it normally the fire department that does the investigations into these matters? That seems a bit strange in and of itself. A lot of strangeness around this particular case. This article comes from the Epoch Times. Now, the trafficking issue is a large issue. Jeffrey Epstein is just one facet of that, just like Harvey Weinstein is a facet of that. You got Hollywood, you got New York, you got the trafficking across America. Let's not leave out any of the religious organizations that are out there because they have their own problems as well. We know about the Catholic Church and all the claims that have been going on. Well, here we have groundbreaking lawsuits that claim Jehovah's Witnesses covered up years of child sexual abuse. Well, that's not good. Two lawsuits being filed this week are targeting the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses for what plaintiffs claim is a history of child sexual abuse. Heather Steele, 48, John Michael Ewing, 48, were abused as children, but they're filing suits this Wednesday when the New York New Child Victims Act goes into effect. Signed earlier this year, the measure removes the statute of limitations on abuse suits no matter how long ago the abuse occurred. Steele was still a toddler when he says a Jehovah's Witness elder started molesting her in the mid-70s when her family lived in New York. My first memory would be of him fondling me when I was just 2 or 3 years old while he held me in the back seat of my dad's car. When she was 10, Steele finally told her mother, but rather than tell the police, Mom went to the elders. It was basically them trying to convince us that was in our minds and that none of this stuff actually happened or that we had bad dreams. Steele said the elders told us that we should pray for Nicholson. After Steele's parents finally went to secure secular authorities, Nicholson was arrested and served 3.5 years in prison. But when he got out, he was quietly placed in a New Jersey congregation where few knew of his past. Ewing was 14 when he was paired with a ministerial servant at Florida's Coral Springs East Congregation. The two worked as pioneers, going door to door to proselytize. According to Ewing, the older man raped him repeatedly, everywhere from Virginia to New York, where his case is being filed. The world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses recently moved upstate from Brooklyn to Tuxedo Park. He groomed Michael, made him think sexually abusing him as part of the religion. Attorney Erwin Zalkin, who is representing both Steele and Ewing, tells Newsweek, like, I'm going to teach you what you need to know to be a man. All right, there's a little more to this article. You get the gist of where it's going. Problems occur in all different places. Hollywood, we certainly know, is a big problem. Here we have this article and these comments by Mel Gibson. If you try to find the original source of this article, you're not going to find it. Fortunately, it has been archived and saved in other places because the original source is scrubbing it. As a matter of fact, when I went to the original location, I believe it was Neonet, and I even put in his name, Mel Gibson, into the search engine there, he didn't even come up. So anyway, Hollywood studios, here's what he said. Hollywood studios are drenched by the blood of innocent children, according to Mel Gibson, who claims the consumption of baby blood is so popular in Hollywood that it basically operates as a currency of its own. In a shocking expose, the famed movie producer has blown the whistle on the epidemic of parasites who control Hollywood, stating that every studio in Hollywood is bought and paid for with the blood of innocent children. Gibson appeared on the Graham Norton show on the BBC in November, and he shocked guests backstage about the true nature of the Hollywood elites whose dark deeds he has been witness to. He spoke of these agents who are the enemy of mankind, continually acting contrary to our best interests and breaking every God-given taboo known to man, including the sanctity of children. He said that babies are the premium brand of high-grade caviar, cocaine, diamond steak. He was speaking to the Satanists in the movie industry who harvest the blood of children and who eat their flesh. According to Gibson, they are using and abusing kids. They churn through a huge amount of kids every year. Their spiritual beliefs, if you can call them that, direct them to harvesting the energy of the kids. They feast on this stuff and they thrive on it. The producer points out this isn't anything new. If If you do some research, you will see it as a metaphysical, alchemical phenomenon that you can find it behind the scenes in all dark eras in history. It's a dark, multidimensional occult art and practice used by secret societies in the last few hundred years for social programming and mind control, and raised to a zenith by Hollywood in America in our own era. The secret society referred to as the Illuminati, the globalist cabal which controls our media of communication, the objective from the beginning to instigate revolt against the institutionalized church and to submerge the nations under a communistic one world government and religion. Part of the ritual of this satanic one world religion is pedophilia, which is promoted by homosexuals and which ties with cannibalism. It leads to, according to Gibson, Hollywood is an institutionalized pedophile ring, but for some children it is a stepping stone to be drawn fully into satanic covens where they are sacrificed. This is where many of the missing children have disappeared. Speaking of secret societies, Gibson said these people have their own religions and spiritual teachings and their own social and moral frameworks. They have their sacred texts. They are sick, believe me, and they couldn't be more at odds with what America stands for. As a devout Catholic, Gibson acknowledged the basic good in man, saying there is a creative and loving force inside most of us that guides us through life. But he went on to say these people, Satanists, don't have this. For them, it's the opposite. He described Hollywood elitists as barbarians that thrive on pain, trauma, stress, abuse, and suffering. He said they eat human flesh with the belief that this gives them life force, adding that if a child was suffering in the body and psyche before it died, they believe it gives them extra life force. Okay, that would tie into the adrenochrome you may have heard out there. There's more to this story. It's a lengthy article. You can also find comments out there made by others, like Keanu Reeves said something like this. However, there are those agencies out there that are fact-checking agencies like Snopes, which come in and say, oh, no, these things aren't true. Well, if Snopes says it isn't true, obviously we know it's true because Snopes is the definition of fake news. It's the fake news fact checker that fake news uses to check their facts. But since the fake news fact checkers have no idea of what's real and what's fake, well, you understand why that has not gone anywhere. Okay, here's another story. Robert De Niro, loudmouth De Niro. Uh, he's linked to child sex trafficking ring according to court records. According to court records from 1998, independent journalist John Litchfield discovered that the prostitution agency routinely ensnared girls as young as 5, forcing them to have sex with Hollywood's rich and powerful elite. The French Vice Squad traced an 89 young woman who said they'd been tricked or sometimes physically constrained by the agency into working for them. The girls were sometimes sold on like cattle to other call girl agencies. While it is not clear whether De Niro or not De Niro was supplied with underage girls, his involvement in the ring received little or no media coverage. The case uncovers the brutal methods used to snare young women, some as young as 15, into the call girl agency. It also exposes attempts by the French government machine to block an investigation. It seems France did not want to embarrass senior politicians and damage French interest abroad. According to the documents, the agency's photographer, Jean-Pierre Bourgeois, hung about Persian nightclubs and casting agencies scouting victims. He picked up on young women, often a teenager, invited them to his apartment to take shots. All right, there's a lot more to this article, but again, you see, it says here, Litchfield discovered the documents and wrote 6 people are charged with the running of international prostitution ring who call girls, entertained the actor Robert De Niro, who Robert De Niro, the former tennis player, Wojak Pibek, 2 senior French politicians, and several golf princes. The agency specialized in tricking or trapping Star Trek teenage girls into selling their bodies with the promise of careers as models or actresses. Okay. And so there we go. That's Robert De Niro, the person who acts like he has some sort of moral high ground out there, which he, as we can see, doesn't have a moral high ground. No moral high ground with that man whatsoever. He's just acting on his own accord, taking down Trump because he doesn't want to get caught. All right, Broadway producer Ben Sprecher arrested on child porn charges. The Broadway producer behind the musical Rebecca was busted Tuesday on child porn charges as disgusted neighbors said he once went around collecting signatures to get faster internet. For 9 years, he was not able to say hello, and suddenly he was quite friendly. He needed to have his internet, a female, the resident of the accused kitty perv neighbor, Ben Sprecher, 65, in Manhattan, who famously had his Broadhurst theater play Rebecca, the musical, torpedoed by a con man. Says he's produced everything from Brighton Beach Memoirs to American Buffalo, as well as a national tour of Little House on the Prairie. Is accused of downloading more than 100 videos and photos containing child pornography, according to court documents. The six stash included a nearly 46-minute video of a preteen girl described between 10 to 12 years old engaging in various sex acts with an adult male. All right, so another Hollywood connected person that is out there doing despicable things. All right, we have here a series of videos I'd like you to watch. Mark Levin did a great special the other night in which he interviewed a filmmaker who made a show called 8 Days. The whole episode was all about trafficking, and this page right here is all about that. Let's see here. Some of the highlights of this says the great one, Mark Levine show thread. Finally, he's doing a show about sex trafficking. It looks to me like Pizzagate is as real as it gets. This is a very important program tonight. Child sex trafficking is a very serious consideration that needs to be held in our nation. The greatest country in the world has the youngest rate of children trafficked. One child can bring a pimp between 200,000 to 250K on a year average. Does anyone still wonder where Jeffrey Epstein got his money? It's just not the elites involved in this pedophilia. It's upper class, middle class, and lower class. It's sad when there's groups trying to justify pedophilia. In the United States, you can order a child just as easy you can call and order pizza. Over 90% of the children trafficked are girls. Every year, there's over 150% incline for pre-pubic boys. The mainstream media is too busy with their hate of Donald Trump's agenda. They could never make time to cover something as significant as this. So I want you to check this out. This was a very, very excellent interview. Excellent that this information was brought to light. People need to know about this. I think they're going to replay this again next Saturday. Okay. Some of the things that were brought up over the course of this interview were like 300,000 children trafficked. 300,000. I don't know if that's, in what period of time that is, but there's numbers saying that as many as 75,000, I was looking at are happening in just in one state alone over a course of perhaps a month. So there's a lot of problems going on. They said the average age of the girls that are getting trafficked is about 12 years of age. If you have a kid, you should be highly concerned about this because none of this should be happening at all. Not one iota, but it is, unfortunately, it is because we have individuals in our society that are protecting the bad guys. And by individuals, I mean the people in the media, the people like Fredo, who's out there protecting the bad guys. All right, I got a feel good story for you here. This one is pretty cool. You just scroll down the page. It's from Drivepedia. It says after a giant whale won't leave this driver alone, she soon realizes why. And this is a story of a woman out there. She was she studied the whales. She spent much time out there, and she happened to have this one encounter with a large whale. It says marine biologist Nan Hauser has monitored ocean life, mainly focused on whales and dolphins, for 28 years. She had a situation, I believe it was at the humpback whale, And during the course of it, the whale was nudging her, and she didn't know what was going on. At one point, it seemed to take it under its flipper, and it seemed to be pushing her along, and she didn't understand this strange behavior. And then after a period of time, she came to find out there was a tiger shark in the area. So this whale had acted in a way to want to protect her. And she and the cameraman made it safely back to their boat. But it's just incredible. And then she went back and she watched the footage and was able to even understand more of the behavior, not only of this particular whale that was assisting her, but with other humpbacks that were in that area as well. They knew what was going on, and this woman felt that she was protected by what was taking place with these whales, that they were there as her protectors. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. See, there is protection out there in the universe. It comes from places that we might not expect. There is good, there is evil. We're experiencing the battle of good and evil in our lives every day. But guess what? Evil doesn't win in the end. We've just gotten used to evil winning because that is the image that has been shown to us. Hollywood has shown us an image of evil and has left us with the idea that evil wins. However, that is not the reality of how things really work in life. God wins. God wins. And the only way that this doesn't happen is when people turn away from God. Now, we've had this problem. People have turned their backs on God. We have an entire party, the Democratic Party, which has gone to great lengths to turn their backs on God, as far as removing God from any of their platforms and things that they are part of. So when Marianne Williamson is up there, part of their group now, it seems kind of strange, and you have to wonder what is her agenda with them. Perhaps the connections to A Course in Miracles and MK Ultra and Oprah Winfrey and John of God and human trafficking are the bigger picture that needs to be looked at, and maybe there's more that we need to be aware of, because there is true evil residing, and it seems that there are many, both on the right and the left, and in the middle, that are engaged in this behavior. But it certainly seems like there's a lot more of this action coming from the left. They seem to have embraced, maybe because of the weak-mindedness, maybe the fake news for all these years has worn down their brains where they don't have the ability to think properly, and in weakening their brains, they become more susceptible to the evil around them. It's a good possibility. But the way we can solve this is real simple, and I know people think, oh, this doesn't work. Well, it does work. Prayer is very important. Faith is very important. We learn the words, we understand the words, and as always, the armor of God in this day and age is a very significant thing we need to remember. Ephesians 6:10 through 18 says, finally be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, and against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, all kind of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert. Keep on praying for all the Lord's people. That's it, my friends. That is the secret. Okay? That is the secret. There's a great power in prayer. There's a great power in faith. And those who try to convince you otherwise, they don't know about the power of prayer or the power of faith. They only know the power of evil that is speaking through them, trying to create those doubts in you. Don't have doubts. Have faith. Be strong in the Lord. Be strong knowing that the power of God that flows through us is a winning power. Trust God, my friends. That's all we need to do. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Till then, God bless. Peace. I'm out of here. FirstContactRadio.com.